Welcome back to Hapesy Games, and today I'm looking at my top Doom games. If you've been subscribed to me for some time or on Twitter, you're definitely going to know that I'm a pretty massive Doom fan here, but I don't think I've extensively covered the games in full, so that's what I wanted to do today. I think it's fair to say that Doom probably has had an impact on everybody's gaming life in some way or form. It's really a part of pop culture, to be honest. It's something like The Simpsons in a way, and one of my favourite franchises, and one of the very first first-person shooters I played on my original PC way back in the day, my Pentium 200 MX with 32 megs RAM, and always will be one of the most impactful games for me personally. So as I mentioned, I'm picking my top 5, and I'm going to throw in some honourable mentions in there as well. So let's kick off number 5, and it's Doom Eternal. Now, I might end up upsetting some Doom fans here, but this isn't my favourite Doom game. I did enjoy the game, I beat it, and I beat one of the DLC campaigns. What I gotta say is, I have some gripes with it. I love the actual combat and the system and a lot of stuff they've enhanced from Doom 2016. However, I think it lost a bit of what I liked about the reboot. I thought the UI in particular was really oversaturated. There's way too much going on the screen sometimes. And it focused a little bit too much on the arena-based combat to the point of where I found, and especially in the DLC, it just threw enemies upon enemies upon enemies at you over and over and over again, to the point of where it feels like such a burnout when you're playing this game for long periods. And that was a shame, but ultimately I did enjoy the game. I beat the campaign, but yeah, not my favourite of the bunch. Okay, next up is Doom 3. Now, I am recording this on the BFG edition, but bear in mind, I actually prefer the original Doom 3, and I actually prefer the flashlight switching opposed to the automatic flashlight with the left trigger, because I think it removes some tension. But anyway, it doesn't matter which version you're playing, still an excellent game. Actually scary to be fair. Scary definitely for the first maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then you kind of get used to the jump scares and stuff like that as you get further into the game. But yeah, atmosphere wise, very good. Very different from the original Doom 1 and 2, so that probably upset a few people. But overall, very good game, and I particularly love the Xbox versions. Now next up, probably another shock for some people, I put Doom 2 Hell on Earth at number 3, and people are kind of questioning, what? Are you serious? Yeah, I have. I really love this game, but I have issues with the second game, the second original game. Level design for me was a bit obscure, very obscure, especially if you've come into this first time. Now, I know the levels inside out at this stage because I've played them so much, but if you were a first time player to come along and play these now, some of the later levels are really obscure to find the exits. Anyway, maybe to put more positive spin, it introduced the double barrel shotgun, one of the best double barrel shotguns in any game in my opinion, and it ramped up the action, so there's way more enemies in this than there is the original 95 game. Okay, number 2 for me has got to be Doom 2016, because ultimately Doom 2016 fully rebooted the franchise and brought it to a new audience, but it really didn't lose its way of what made the original game great. This was one of my favourite games in the last decade by far. Absolutely incredible action, and it got the design right between how it felt to play the original Doom game from an exploration point of view, but added in its own new age mechanics and takes. Now, it was arena based to an extent, but it had real great exploration that broke up those arenas, which I really enjoyed. And it's just such a fantastic game. It was really actually a surprise hit in a way in 2016, if anyone can remember back. I don't think anyone expected it to be as good as it actually was. And obviously it's kicked off the franchise again, and I spoke on Doom Eternal earlier. If you were to ask me which one I prefer, most definitely prefer 2016 over Eternal. I think they have the balance right between exploration and action in the reboot itself, and it was so authentic and such a great throwback to the original games. One of the most important reboots, I think, for any FPS coming out of the last decade, in my opinion. Okay, a couple of honourable mentions here. Doom PSX, which is the PlayStation version of the original game. It actually combines both the Doom 1 and Doom 2 into one package. But there's really some significant changes in this one, in particularly around the tone and atmosphere. Gone is the music, the MIDI music, heavy rock tunes, heavy metal music, replaced with this really, really atmospheric music, which really increases the horror aspect of the original Doom twofold. It actually changes up as well some of the weapon sounds and how some of the enemies sound as well. So everything is kind of a little bit more grisly and gruesome. Now, there's always a debate here between which version I prefer, the original or the PSX version. Definitely the PSX version brings a certain tone and atmosphere, and it really makes the game way more moody than I find in the original. And that brings me on to the next honourable mention, which is Doom 64. Again, very similar in tone to the PSX version. Now, it did have brand new sprites, brand new level design, very, very, very drastically different from the original Doom game here. But it did actually bring some of that tone and atmosphere that you got from the PSX version into the Doom version. Funny enough, I'm actually playing a mod called Brutal Doom 64 here. I did a video on it ages and ages ago, so it's my favourite way to play Doom 64. Also, the recent re-releases on Nintendo Switch, Steam, and Xbox One and PS4 are excellent reintroductions of this game as well if you want to play the original version. So great ways to experience Doom 64 here. And finally, look, it was always going to be Doom 95 for me. This was one of the very, very first games I owned on my original PC, Pentium 232 megs of RAM. And I've beaten this game maybe 50 to 100 times, and every time I pick it up I can go back and play it again. The gameplay is timeless. I think the difference between Doom 1 and 2 for me is the level design in Doom 1 is far superior than 2, and as I mentioned, there's some obscurity between 2 and 1 which I don't like. If I'm always going back to replay the original game, it's always got to be Doom 1 in my opinion. The game is simply iconic, and look, it was always going to be number 1. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. Let me know if I've missed out on some Doom games that you may enjoy. There's actually a lot more. There's a Doom RPG as well, which I didn't actually add to this list. So share your top 5 in the comments. Let me know if I've missed any games. And if you enjoyed what you've seen and you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.